few months ago, my wife Lisa sat me down one evening, her eyes filled with a sadness I hadn't noticed before. She confided in me that she felt lonely, isolated even. Aside from me, she had no close friends, no one to confide in or spend time with outside of our marriage. I felt a pang of guilt. Had I been enough for her? Had I unknowingly contributed to this loneliness? Wanting to support her and ease her burden, I encouraged her to branch out, to meet new people. That's when she discovered an online meetup group. At first, I was relieved. She started going out more, returning home with stories of new acquaintances, and inside jokes I wasn't part of. She seemed lighter, happier, and I told myself this was good. No one should rely solely on their spouse for happiness, but soon I started noticing a pattern. One name in particular kept coming up: Jake. At first, I brushed it off. Lisa was allowed to have friends, and I trusted her completely. But as the weeks passed, little things started adding up, subtle shifts in her behavior that made my gut tighten with unease. Lisa began spending an unusual amount of time at Jake's house, which he shared with a few housemates. At first, she made sure to keep me in the loop, sending me pictures of their board game nights, laughing faces frozen in time, as if to reassure me that nothing was amiss. But the red flags were glaring. She started taking her phone into the shower, something she had never done before. She became more secretive, texting late at night when she claimed she was exhausted from work, her screen dimly glowing beneath the covers. If I asked who she was talking to, she'd give vague, dismissive answers, just a friend or nothing important. Then there were the excuses, flimsy and riddled with inconsistencies, for why she needed to see Jake so often. My gut screamed at me, louder with each passing day, but I silenced it. I told myself I was being paranoid, that I was reading too much into things. I convinced myself that Lisa loved me, and that love meant trust, even when every sign pointed to betrayal. One night, after spending hours overthinking every possible outcome, I finally gathered the courage to talk to her about it. I chose my words carefully, making sure not to sound judgmental, and calmly expressed my feelings. I reassured her that I had no issue with her having friends, but the situation with Jake seemed inappropriate, crossing the boundaries of what I believed was acceptable in our marriage. She barely looked up from her phone, her fingers tapping against the screen in quick movements, before she scoffed and dismissed my concerns entirely. "You're just being paranoid," she said with a sigh. "You're acting jealous and needy for no reason." Her tone was sharp, cutting through me like a blade. "We just have a lot in common. Why is that such a big deal?" The cold indifference in her voice made my stomach sink. I felt small, insignificant, like my feelings didn't matter. Week later, Lisa told me she was going into town to shop for her niece's birthday gift. Something about the way she said it, the forced casualness in her tone, the way she avoided my gaze, made my gut twist with unease. I told myself I was being paranoid, that I had to trust her, but doubt clung to me like a shadow. I knew where Jake lived. I had dropped him off once after a group gathering. The thought gnawed at me until I couldn't ignore it anymore. I grabbed my keys and drove there, my heart pounding. As I neared his street, my breath caught in my throat. There it was, her car parked right outside his house. The sight hit me like a punch to the stomach. My hands tightened around the steering wheel, shaking desperately. My throat was tight. My vision blurred and felt like throwing up. I pulled over, gripping the steering wheel hard. My mind raced with 1,000 thoughts, but none of them made sense. I felt like a fool, like I had been willingly blind to something that had been unfolding right in front of me. My body refused to move, numbed by the gut-wrenching realization of my worst fears. When I finally forced myself to drive back home, the world outside felt unreal and distant, like I was watching my own life crumble from the outside. The road blurred beneath me, but it didn't matter. Nothing mattered anymore. When she got back, I asked how her day was, trying to keep my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. She smiled a little too quickly and told me she couldn't find the right present. Her words were smooth, rehearsed even, but I saw through them. I took a deep breath and told her to tell me the truth. The moment I revealed that I knew where she had been, the color drained from her face as if someone had flipped a switch. Her lips parted, but no words came out at first. Then, she stammered, grasping for an explanation, saying she had only gone for coffee and didn't tell me because she didn't want to feed my jealousy. Her voice wavered, her hands fidgeted, and every detail screamed guilt. That should have been the end. I should have walked away, spared myself the months of torment that would follow. But like a fool, I let her wrap me in her web of lies, let her manipulate me into believing I was the one who needed to change, that I was the problem. Another week passed. While I was at work, Lisa texted, asking if she could go to Jake's for coffee after her shift. I sighed but agreed. I wasn't home anyway, and I told myself that keeping the peace was more important than confronting her again. Hours went by with no calls from her, and then late in the evening, I received another text. She was staying at Jake's for dinner. A simple message, but it felt like I was losing my mind. My hands clenched around my phone, my breathing shallow. That was it. I snapped. I texted her, telling her not to come home, my fingers shaking as I typed out words that had been simmering inside me for weeks. I accused her of having an emotional affair at the very least, of crossing lines that no married person should ever cross. She pleaded, saying she wanted to talk in person, and that I was misunderstanding the situation, but I shut her out. I couldn't bear to hear another excuse, another lie wrapped in half-truths and gaslighting. And yet the next night, I caved. The silence in our home was suffocating, the weight of my own emotions unbearable. I convinced myself that maybe I had overreacted, that my paranoia had driven me to act impulsively. So, I texted her, apologizing for the way I handled things, telling her that I just wanted to understand the situation. When she returned, she flipped the script effortlessly. Suddenly, she was the victim. Her eyes brimmed with unshed tears as she accused me of damaging our relationship, of making her feel unsafe, of betraying her trust. She told me she didn't know if she could ever look at me the same way again. I swallowed my anger, guilt wrapping around me like a noose. Somehow she had managed to turn everything around. And in that moment, I believed her. I convinced myself that I was the problem. December 23rd came, and Lisa suggested we celebrate Christmas early together since she would be spending the 25th with her sister and her niece. The idea stung more than I let on. I had envisioned waking up beside her on Christmas morning, exchanging gifts under the tree, sharing quiet, intimate moments. But I pushed my disappointment aside and agreed. That evening, we cooked dinner together, laughter filling the kitchen as we playfully bumped into each other, stealing kisses between stirring pots and setting the table. We exchanged gifts, each wrapped with thought and care, and spent the night curled up on the couch watching our favorite holiday movies, the glow of the Christmas lights making everything feel magical. It was perfect, or at least it seemed that way. Before. She left on Christmas Eve. Lisa hesitated at the door, her fingers fidgeting with the hem of her sweater. "I feel bad," she admitted, biting her lip. "I didn't get you a gift." I shook my head, smiling despite the tiny pang in my chest. "I don't mind, really. I got yours because I love you, not because I expected anything in return." Her eyes softened, and she reached for my hand, squeezing it gently. "You're too good to me." We kissed, a lingering farewell that felt heavier than it should have. I told myself I was imagining things, that it was simply the weight of the holidays making me emotional. I didn't know then that this would be the last time I ever saw her. I was right. That was the last day I ever saw her. Later that night, I sat at my computer, exhaustion weighing me down, hoping to distract myself with emails or mindless browsing. But as soon as I opened the screen, I froze. Lisa had forgotten to log out of her email. My pulse quickened, my hands already numbed as an unsettling feeling crawled up my spine. I hesitated for a moment, debating whether I should invade her privacy. But something deep inside me, something screaming for the truth, pushed me forward. And there it was, a saved WhatsApp chat between her and Jake. My stomach twisted into a sick knot as I clicked it open, my breath hitching in my throat. Messages flooded the screen, weeks of texts, a cascade of betrayal, light-hearted banter that evolved into shameless flirting, then explicit confessions. "I love being in your arms," she had written. "I miss you already." Promises to send him pictures, playful teasing about their next meetup. And then the words that shattered me completely. The memory of their first night together. My eyes stared at the timestamps, my heart pounding as the realization sank in like a dagger to my gut. Early December, that was when it happened. That was when she gave herself to him. The same night. She had come home, curled up next to me, and whispered that she loved me. The same night she had kissed me goodnight while carrying the scent of another man on her skin. I swallowed hard, the bile rising in my throat, my body shaking with a mixture of anger and devastation. I had doubted myself for so long, convinced myself that I was imagining things. But I wasn't crazy. The truth had been right in front of me all along, and now I could no longer deny it. I scrolled further. She told Jake she couldn't wait to be with him. Jake joked that she should steal my PlayStation before leaving. She laughed. It was sickening. Shaking, I checked her Google location history, my hands trembling as I navigated through the app. My heart pounded in my chest, each beat a deafening drum of impending doom. She wasn't at her sister's house like she had promised. No, she was somewhere else, somewhere that made my stomach drop. Jake's. The name burned into my mind like a brand, searing through every shred of doubt I had left. She had left me alone on Christmas Eve, on a night meant for love and togetherness, to be with him, to hold him, to laugh with him, to bask in the glow of a secret she had kept from me for far too long. The betrayal sank deep, an icy knife twisting in my gut as I realized just how little I had meant to her in the end. I called her. I asked where she was. She lied, said she was at her sister's. Even at the end, she lied. I told her everything, the messages, the gaslighting, the betrayal. She barely spoke, only whispering, "I know." I told her I never wanted to see her again and hung up. Lisa's sister had known the whole time. She said nothing. Let me suffer in ignorance. Let Lisa keep breaking me. The next day, I packed all of Lisa's things into bags and left them outside. I didn't break anything, though. I wanted to. I was better than that. I was broken. But I refused to let her shatter me completely. The days followed were an unrelenting nightmare. I couldn't eat. Every bite felt like it would choke me. Sleep became a distant memory. When I did manage to drift off, I'd wake, up drenched in sweat, my heart pounding, convinced I heard her voice in the house, her presence lingering like a ghost. The panic attacks came like waves, unpredictable and suffocating, stealing my breath and leaving me gasping in the dark. I barely recognized myself anymore. The weight of betrayal wrapped around me like a suffocating shroud, dragging me deeper into a darkness I never knew existed. Then, after 4 days of deafening silence, my phone buzzed. Lisa. My pulse spiked. As I stared at her name on the screen, my stomach twisting into knots. Against my better judgment, I opened the message. She said she had been confused for months, that her feelings for me were real, that she had never meant to hurt me. And then, the final blow, she didn't want our marriage to end over text. She needed to see me. For closure. Closure? The word felt like a cruel joke. as if meeting face to face would somehow rewrite the past, erase the deceit, justify the months of manipulation. As if hearing her voice again wouldn't rip open the wounds that were barely beginning to heal. She was grasping at straws, desperate to ease her own guilt. But I wasn't about to hand her the absolution she sought. Not this time. Closure? She wanted me to sit across from her and listen to her justify months of deception? As if hearing her excuses would somehow erase the pain, undo the betrayal, or make me understand why she had chosen to rip my heart apart piece by piece. She was delusional if she thought I owed her that. I ignored her texts, each one a desperate plea wrapped in manipulative regret. I blocked her number without hesitation, cutting off the last tether she had to me. But she was relentless, finding new ways to contact me. Emails filled with empty apologies, mutual friends acting as messengers. I deleted everything without reading, severing every last connection. I wanted no part of her anymore. She had already stolen enough of me. I refused to let her take another second of my time, another ounce of my energy. Weeks passed, each day blurring into the next. I was still broken, shattered in ways I never thought possible. But slowly, the cracks began to heal. It wasn't easy. Every meal I forced myself to eat felt like a battle won, every bite tasting, like nothing but reminding me that I was still here, still fighting. I found solace in long walks with my dog, the rhythmic sound of paws against pavement, grounding me when my mind threatened to spiral. My nights were filled with distractions, cooking elaborate meals I barely touched, watching movies just to fill the silence, immersing myself in anything that could drown out the echoes of her voice in my head. The pain didn't vanish overnight. It clung to me, stubborn and relentless, but little by little, it loosened its grip. What once felt unbearable became manageable, and what once defined me began to fade into something I could live with. Now, 5 weeks removed from D-Day, I am still standing. The wounds are still there. Some fresh, some scabbed over, but I endure. I still struggle. Some mornings I wake up expecting to hear her voice, only to be met with silence, a stark reminder of what was lost. Some days, I see something that reminds me of Lisa. A song, a scent, a place we once shared, and the weight of it all crashes down again, suffocating, relentless. But I am healing, inch by inch, breath by breath. And most importantly, I am free. Free from the lies, the deception, the never-ending cycle of doubt and pain. Free to reclaim my life, my happiness, and the version of myself that she tried to destroy. Lisa thought she could break me, that I would always be there, waiting, no matter how deeply she cut me with her lies and betrayal. She assumed my love was endless, that my patience had no limits, but she was wrong. I am not replaceable, not someone she can cast aside and expect to linger in the shadows. I am not weak, not someone who will crumble under the weight of her deceit. One day, when the dust of her reckless choices settles, when the thrill of her betrayal fades into regret, she will finally understand. She lost the one person who truly loved her, the one who would have stood by her through anything. And when that realization dawns, when the emptiness of her actions swallows her whole, I won't be there to catch her. And when that moment comes, when the weight of her choices crashes down, when the thrill of her betrayal fades into an unbearable emptiness, she will reach for someone to hold her, to reassure her that everything will be okay. But I won't be there. I won't be the safety net she once took for granted, the steady hand always ready to pull her back from the edge. No, she will fall, and this time she will face the consequences of her actions alone. Let me ask you a favor. If you enjoyed the video, hit that like button. It's just a simple click for you, but it really helps the channel grow and reach more people around the world who need to hear these stories. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the next one. Also, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think about all this? Share this with your friends, family, or anyone you think should hear this story. Trust me, they'll thank you later. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.